Hi, this is a short presentation video on how to use the A self-billing system. Based on the latest guideline from LHDN, you have to issue self-bill invoices for the following. Purchases from local suppliers who don't provide you e-invoices. So you have to create your own e-invoice submission, self-bill invoice. Purchases from overseas suppliers. Overseas suppliers obviously don't have an income tax number in Malaysia, so you have to create a self-bill invoice. Then a rental paid to landlords who don't provide you with e-invoice. Payment of commission to any recipient, whether it's own staff or outsiders. You need to create your own self-bill invoice. Of course, you need to get their NRIC details and so on to include inside the self-bill invoice. And then any other self-billing requirements, please check with your tax consultant. They will be able to advise you on what else that you need to do self-bill invoices. Okay, let's go into the actual system itself, how to use this system. This system is meant for you to issue any type of self-bill invoice that you require. So first we enter the user's name and password. System will pick up the date. And then you come to the main menu. So in the menu, you will have the same as usual, maintenance, posting, report, and others, where you do the setup. So under maintenance, you will have the setup of the payee. That means who do you invoice, the self-invoice from, who are the people that you pay money to. So these are called payees. So you can be a staff, it can be a foreign supplier, it can be anybody that you're doing a self-bill. So you need to enter the details of these people who receive money for you when you pay them for your purchases. The second one is the stock items, the items that you bill under self-billing. It can be any type of products that you buy or any type of service that you buy. Then under the posting side, you have issue of self-bill invoice, how to issue a self-bill invoice or self-bill credit note. Under report, you will have a reprinting of the self-bill invoice or the credit note, list of the summary list of the self-bill invoices or credit note, and a report on e-invoice submission, because this self-bill invoice will be submitted to income tax directly. And others is just a setting in case of any problem with data. You have data sorting, you have system setup, and change today's date and exit the system. This is the main menu inside the system itself. So let's go into the first part, the maintenance of payee. Payee are the people that you issue a self-bill invoice to. That means people who receive money from you when you buy their goods or services. So you can type any code that you want, and then you can type in their name, your address, for example, let's say street 42, section 3, address line, postcode. You must type something in the postcode. You cannot leave it blank because this is a compulsory field, but it can be anything. For example, if let's say this is a postcode, then the city, you cannot leave it blank. Now if you leave it blank, what happens is that when you try to go on, the system will warn you city cannot be left empty. The reason is because some of this information is required for the submission of the tax for the invoice. So say, so system itself will warn you. Now state, if you go on Malaysia state, of course you can have a pull down here, you can have different state, right? But if it's overseas, you don't have. These states are not inside there, so you will use 00 for overseas. Okay, country, you really have to choose the country. There's a list of country already. Okay, so for example, if this is in China, choose the country China, and then person to contact, Mr. Wong. What is his telephone number? This is the normal telephone number. Let's say 612345678 and then the mobile phone number and their email address. And then if they are local, you have TIN numbers. Then you put in if it's a local supplier and who don't issue e-invoice, you want to issue a self-bill invoice, you can have the TIN number. If you don't, for foreigners, foreign supplier, you have to use EI 901234567893. This represent foreign suppliers, and of course because it's a foreign supplier code, you cannot do a validation. If it's a local one, you can actually do a validation. So here you have to use, if it's a company, BRN, put there NA because they are not registered in Malaysia itself, and then you save. This is how you create a payee account. So if you're creating a local supplier who doesn't give you self-bill invoice, again you have a name, pay orders, name of the company, okay, name line 2 and so on, 3, and then address. Okay, you can type your address line. You have your postcode. This one will have actual postcode because these are local in Malaysia, state. So let's say this is Selangor. Okay, country Malaysia is MYS. Then person to contact. What is the telephone number? What is the handphone number? And email address. And then what is the TIN number? You got to put in a valid TIN number which you can actually validate. For example, if this is a company, that means this is a company, for example. Okay, so put in actual, and then you can do a validation. And then you save. Okay, next is to create the stock codes for items that you bill always, like self-billing, so you don't have to repeat the typing all the time. So you only need to separate this by the different E-class. For every item, that in self-billing, in e-invoice you have an E-class, right? So you don't have to go into very detail, because if let's say all the things that you buy from a foreigner is already in a certain E-class, you can actually put them all together. For example, SO3 I already have, so I put there what is the E-class. So inside E-class, for example, of course you have select, there's already a fixed list provided by the income tax. So let's say this is 003, and then you save. Alright, so when you create you can just separate them by different E-class. So let's say stock item S004, then your description line 2, description line 3, all this will come out in your self-bill invoice. Then you check for E-class. So let's say if it doesn't belong to any specific one, put 022, which is others, and you add. So you don't have to create very detailed for every item, because inside the e-invoice, when you submit, they actually just need the total amount and the different E-class inside the self-bill invoice itself, the e-invoice. Okay, once you have all those two categories, the payee and the stock done up, you can go and do your self-billing invoice already. This is self-billing invoice, so you have to choose which payee account. So let's say you're doing to this particular payee, and this payee, the name, address, everything will come out, all the addresses, and then the invoice date. You can use back your actual invoice date, and then when you do the submission, the system will use today's date as a submission date. Now, so supplier invoice number, key in your supplier's invoice number, the origin number, and then the E-class, the product that you buy. So if let's say you only buy one E-class from one particular, so you may be in multiple products, but they all belong to an E-class, you can actually just choose one of these, and then let's say in total amount, what was the total amount billing? Let's say it came to 5,000, just key in 5,000, and then that's it. You don't have to go and put individual item one by so many items. If you have a foreign supplier supply you, let's say 20 items, but all the 20 items the same E-class, you can just put them into one single line, because the e-invoice in the end, what they need is actually the total amount. So you do a posting, and then the system will print out the self-bill invoice itself. Alright, now you notice that all the street address, everything, the system will combine them into the payee address here. So the self-bill invoice will show the invoice number, which is an automatic running number, and then what is the original supplier invoice and date of the invoice. This date will follow whatever date you need, and the submission will follow today's date. Authorized signature, that's it. This is a self-bill invoice. Now, once you have finished typing the self-bill invoice, the submission to the income tax server is immediate. Immediately you submit. Now, if for some reason there is a internet down or some problem with the income tax server, your system will store into somewhere, and then you will repeat the submission again when we next schedule it to do submission. So it's automatically, you will track those that were not successfully submitted, you will resubmit again for you automatically. So let's do another example. You can choose from here the list of payee. Let's say this is an overseas supplier. what is the date, what was the original supplier's invoice number, and then let's say you have two different E-class this time. So you happen to have this, and this was say 4,500. Then you have another item with a different E-class. Let's say this is 1, and then this one happened to be 1,000. So you will type two different E-class and post, and then print out the self-billed invoice. Right, so and then you can print out this invoice and keep this record. Now immediately the system will do the submission straight away for this invoice. If successful, you will be submitted. If it's not successful, subsequently it will do its own submission again automatically to try to resubmit. Self-billed credit note, the only is similar. The only difference is that you need to find out what is the original invoice number that was submitted. That's all. What is the original number that you have submitted? Okay, so let's say this was the original invoice, and then what is the item that you have returned? Okay, what is the item that you returned? You not necessarily credit note all the items, right? It could be one of the items that you purchased, and then how much was the actual credit note that was returned, and then post. And then you have a e-refund note. All right, we assume that you already paid for it, so it's called e-refund note, total amount. Everything similar except there is a refund note, and then there's a CN number, there's a credit number, and then there is a invoice number, the original invoice number. Okay, under the report section, you can actually reprint your invoice or your credit note, right? Or your refund note invoice, what date you choose, and then which specific number you can actually reprint. Okay, so all your self-bill invoice, this is in case you need to not print another copy. Alright, you can reprint. Or you can reprint your credit note if you did issue any credit note, and then you can see the e-refund note is here. Okay, you can list a summary report of all the invoices that you have done. This is a report. It tells you what is all the self-bill invoice you've done for checking purposes, audit purposes, or all the credit note that you have done. Okay, this is a summary report. Or you can go to the e-invoice submission report that shows you the status of the submission. So whether they've been successful or not, or whether they are pending submission. If their submission is validated, there will be in this report you can see that it will be validated at what date and time. So next one, under others, you have data sorting. In case there's some problem that you encountered, you want to re-index, that means re-sort the database. You can use sorting. The system will say, do you wish to sort? Yes, make sure I know XML, then sort. Or you can go into system setup. System setup basically is all the index prefix. You have some prefix number for invoice number, the last CN number and all that will be here. And then there will be your company's detail, because we need these company details in order to do the submission. Right, these are the details required as per the other systems that you have, and then you can be to a real server or to a test server. Right, this is the setting with your client ID and a secret ID. So this is the setup section.